Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to be going over pistol mounted red dot optics like the ones you see here, and I'm also going to be showing you what I believe to be the best option that is currently on the market. Now, saying it's the best is very subjective. I completely understand that, but in my personal opinion and in my experiences, this is the best option and it is definitely my favorite. Now, before we get into what is actually my favorite, I just wanted to quickly go over the idea of red dots on pistols. A lot of people still are not really comfortable with the theory of running a red dot on a pistol. I was one of you for a very long time. I believe it was like 6 or 7 years ago. I put a Vortex Venom on a Glock 19. Absolutely did not like it. It slowed me down. I was like, nope, this is not for me, and I'm never going to run a pistol on a red dot. Times have changed, and that's definitely not the case. I'm very biased. I run red dots on pretty much everything now as far as pistols go. All the pistols that I conceal carry and train with, they all have red dots. I still do run irons from time to time just because I'm that guy and I like to stay proficient on kind of everything. And obviously iron sights are always going to be around no matter how good red dots get. There's a lot of advantages to red dots, but the number one advantage for me personally is going to be the ability to threat focus. So a lot of us are taught when we're shooting iron sights, you're supposed to always focus on the front sight with your hard focus and then have your rear sight and your target in a soft focus. And that is the best way to be able to shoot accurately. If you're shooting quickly, you can target focus when you're shooting iron sights, but it's not going to be as accurate. So it's really going to depend on the distance and how large your target is. The advantage to a red dot is it doesn't matter if I'm shooting at 2 or 200 yards. I always have the ability to threat focus. And what that simply means is I keep my focus completely on the target that I'm shooting at or the threat. And then as I bring the pistol up, I just superimpose that dot over the target and then I can take my shot. So what you do not do with a red dot is you do not look at the dot. You simply look at the target, bring the pistol up, presentate it, and it should come into your view. Now, the disadvantage to red dots, I would say, is it does require a very, very good presentation. And I mean the ability to bring the gun up and line it up with your eye every single time. That's one of the problems I had with it in years past. My presentation was not that good, and I honestly didn't want to take the time to fix it. And that's why at first, red dots were not for me. But not long after that, I tried them again, and I actually put in the time and the effort to really dial in my presentation to the point that every time I present that pistol, I have that dot, I have it lined up, and I'm never fishing around looking for it. If you're fishing around looking for that red dot a lot, you need to put a little bit more work into your presentation. And I promise you, once you get it down, it will become second nature. Every time you draw this gun and push it out, that dot will be there. Also, another con to a red dot would be kind of the same thing we're talking about with presentation, but recoil control. If you do not have a decent amount of recoil control, you will lose that dot under recoil, which will absolutely slow you down. When you have iron sights, as that front sight is bouncing up and down, you can obviously see it very easily and you can correct yourself. With a red dot, you have a much smaller window, so having a good presentation and having really good recoil control is going to be really important when running these type of optics. Now, once you get that dialed in, I do absolutely believe that red dots are superior to iron sights. Once again, iron sights aren't going anywhere, and I'm still going to continue to run them myself from time to time. But red dot just offers you a lot of advantages, speed and accuracy combined, and that's really the whole name of the game. Now, the biggest issue that I've had in the past when it comes to these type of red dot mounted sights, and what I mean by that, it can go for these Holosuns, this can go for the Vortex offerings, Leopold Delta Point, the Trijicon RMR. Obviously, the RMR is a extremely good optics, been around for a while. I personally have moved away from the RMR in favor of some other optics, and especially the one I'm going to show you in a minute. But the biggest problem I've had with all those optics is the open emitter. Now, some people are going to instantly click off of this video, and hey, good for you, because they think this is not a valid argument. But for me personally, I've had it happen, and so it is very valid. And what I mean by that, the way these optics work, and this goes for all of them, is you have an emitter here in the rear, a little LED, and it shines a light onto that glass. And that's the way every red dot works. But with these type of red dots, it is an open emitter. So if I stick my finger in there, the dot is literally blocked. So that same concept can go along if you were to get some lint in there, if it's a concealed carry firearm, or if you were to drop it and get mud or dirt or anything like that that blocks that emitter, even a little small piece. When you draw your pistol out and you hit your presentation, you're not going to have a dot. Another problem can come with shooting in the rain and obviously shooting in snow as well. Rain being probably the most controversial one. I don't think anyone will argue that if you get mud and snow in here, it will block the emitter. Some people say shooting in rain, it just simply never will happen. And for those people, I would say you are wrong, or you haven't been shooting in the rain that much. I've done enough shooting in the rain in the past that I've actually drawn my pistol out, and when I hit my presentation, I look through the optic, look down range, and instead of having that nice crisp 2 MOA dot, I had about 25 different dots. And the reason that happens is if water gets in there and that LED shines through that water droplet, it just explodes the LED. So instead of 1 dot, you have anywhere from 5 to 50. And yes, I'm aware before you type it in the comments that there are drain holes in here for exactly that reason. And those drain holes absolutely do work. But like I said, in certain circumstances, things happen. It absolutely will cause a problem and make you not to have that nice clean dot that you were expecting. So albeit that is a very limited circumstances that can happen, but it is something that I have personally experienced. And although I do run these open emitter optics on a lot of different pistols, that is still one of the drawbacks to this type of optic. It's also one of the reasons I personally would never run an open emitter optic on a carbine. There's just so many other options out there. I never understood when people run a RMR as their dedicated optic on a carbine. Running it as an offset or a backup, that's a little different, but relying on an open emitter, option on a carbine that's not going to be in a holster, so it's not going to have anything protecting that emitter, that just doesn't make sense to me. So I've obviously went the long way around to show you my favorite pistol optic, so I'm going to go ahead and move these over here to the side, and finally, what you've been waiting for, show you my favorite. And here it is. This is the Holosun 509T. Now there is also a second option of this, which would be the Aimpoint Acro. The Aimpoint Acro is very similar to this, except it has very, very poor battery life, so I absolutely would not recommend it. With that said, there is a Generation 2 of the Acro that is coming out that has better battery life, so that definitely may be an option worth checking out. But for now, this is absolutely my favorite. Now, as far as the options that this optic gives you that others don't, it's really not that much. And what I mean by that is, it still has the solar on top, like a lot of other Holosun optics. It's also made out of titanium, which Holosun offers optics just like this one here that are made of titanium as well. It has the same reticle options as pretty much everybody else on the market these days. It has up to a 5-year battery life, just like all these other optics do, including the RMR and some others. There's really only one big advantage to this optic, and that advantage being the enclosed emitter. So as you can see here on the back, I'm going to lock it open so we can point it this way. We have glass on the front and glass on the rear. So it is much more like a traditional red dot like this one here. Now this is just a little cheap Bushnell red dot, but you get the idea. You've got your glass on the front and glass on the rear. So it's built just like a traditional red dot, but in a micro red dot format. So the advantages to that, I think, are pretty obvious. You're getting all the advantages that we went over earlier of your traditional open emitter red dot, but you're also getting those shortcomings fixed. So even if you believe this is a problem or it's not a problem, having this open emitter, you really can't argue, not at least justifiably in my opinion, that this doesn't fix an issue. Another big plus to this red dot, at least in my opinion, is going to be the cost. Now when this optic first came out, they were really pushing up close to $500. Now that price has really dropped a lot. The first one I bought, I paid a little over $400, and I recently just picked up another one a while back, and I paid $240 for this optic. Now I would love to tell you where I bought it at, but that sale is long gone, and they are definitely out of stock. So it would just make you sad to go over there and see that out of stock sign. But just the fact these optics have came down that much in price is a really good thing to me. This optic gives me everything I want in a pistol mounted optic, and it is hands down my current favorite on the market. I even have one mounted on this AR build here. So I've got the 509T sitting in a air socket mount at a 45-degree angle. If you're not familiar with this concept, this allows you to have your primary optic and then a backup optic that you can transition to if your primary fails. Also, if you're running a magnified optic like you see here, if I have this thing cranked up on the magnification and then I suddenly need to take a closer shot, I can just cant the rifle and use it that way. I really like having an offset optic like this. I was a little bit reluctant to do that in the past, as I mentioned before, because of the open emitters. like on optics like this. I didn't like the idea of having an open emitter mounted out here and it always being exposed to the elements. But with the 509T, those problems are long gone. Now, I went over a lot of the advantages of the enclosed emitter red dot, but I did just simply want to put this out there. I'm not a competition shooter. If I was, the open emitter red dots would be absolutely fine in my opinion. Worst case scenario, if my dot fails or if it gets something blocking the emitter or something like that, I just simply lose the stage. But for me personally, concerned citizen, whatever you want to call it, I look at guns and accessories, optics, weapon lights, all of that as a potential life-saving device, so it has to work all the time, and that's why the enclosed emitter is a big deal to me. Also, if you want to see some really good durability tests on these optics, I definitely recommend you check out Sage Dynamics' YouTube channel. He's got some drop tests where he absolutely abuses this thing, along with some other optics on the market, including the Holosun 507K that you see here. And so you can really see that these optics are really durable. I'm really focusing more on the concept of the enclosed emitter and how it works and all of that. But obviously durability is extremely important, and there's a lot of good videos out there going over that. If you don't take anything else away from this video, please take this. These are some really good guns. This is one of my all-time favorite optics. Obviously, this is definitely one of my favorite builds, but none of this is going to matter without training. You can have the absolute best kit in the world and all the bells and whistles and spend thousands and thousands of dollars, but without training, none of it is going to matter and none of it is going to make you a better shooter. Just remember to always focus on the training. Yes, you should have quality gear, but training is going to trump gear every time. I know this video is very anticlimactic. I really just wanted to go over these optics and just explain to you why I like them so much and why I honestly do think they are the best option currently on the market. Now, with that said, I'm definitely not opposed to innovation. So the new Generation 2 Aimpoint Acro that's coming out is also an enclosed emitter, and it supposedly has some good battery life. So I definitely want to check that out in the future. But I really do hope a lot of companies go this direction when it comes to pistol-mounted red dots. I think pistol-mounted red dots are not the future, because I believe the future is now. And I believe enclosed emitters go along with that same theory. As much as I really do like this style of red dot, I can't personally see myself ever purchasing one of those again when you have this option on the market. Well, that about wraps it up for today's video. I'm about to get out of here and head down to the range and film a shooting drill video for you guys. And I'll be running it with this pistol right here and also this carbine. If you have any questions about any of the optics or any of the setups that you've seen here today, feel free to comment down below. Also, if you would like to contact me directly for any reason or questions or something like that, Instagram is definitely the best place to do so. And if you would, give me a follow over there. I would appreciate that as well. As always, thanks for watching. See y'all next time.